The great story behind Dele Giwa's death in 1986. Dele Giwa is a role model for many journalists. During his lifetime, he exhibited the true art of journalism, which is worthy of emulation. Reports gathered revealed that Dele Giwa is a man of integrity, who is perceived as an intelligent journalist that never took bribes or followed the suits of brown envelopes journalists. Dele Giwa was the co-founder and editor of Newswatch, founded in 1984, alongside his colleagues Ray Ekbu, Dan Agbis, and Yakubu Mohammed. History has it that the first news edition of Newswatch was published on January 28, 1985, which became a landmark in the history of print journalism in Nigeria. The media had an investigative format, which was never featured in any newspaper at the time. With various experiences and exposure, such as his education at Brooklyn College in 1977, and his career as a news assistant in the New York Times and Daily Times, in mass media, Dele Giwa became a wanted journalist in the 1980s during Ibrahim Babangita's regime as the head of state. In this piece, I will be revealing the birth and early life of Dele Giwa, as well as the story behind his assassination, as it relates to his career as a journalist. On March 16, 1947, Sumonu Oladile Giwa was born to a family who worked in Oba Adesoji Aderemes, the then Uni of Ife's palace. In Lagir, Al-Lefi, he attended the local authority modern school. His father was admitted to Oduduwa College in Al-Ife when he relocated there to work as a laundryman. Despite his desire to study medicine or chemical engineering, his teacher urged him to focus on learning the English language. But after finishing his secondary education, he was unable to apply for admission to further colleges due to his parents' financial situation. Therefore, in order to further his studies, Dele Giwa moved to the United States with the help of his father, who was working as a launder. Meanwhile, Dele Giwa, at 19 years old, spent 5 months as a clerk with Barclays Bank in 1966 before moving on to the Nigeria Tobacco Company, NTC. After that, he transferred to the news department of what is now the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, FRCN, formerly known as the Nigeria Broadcasting Corporation, NBC. When he got a substantial amount to further his education, Dele Giwa moved to the United States and graduated with a BA in English from Brooklyn College in 1977. He then enrolled in a graduate program at Fordham University. During his early career as a journalist, he spent 4 years as a news assistant for the New York Times until 1979, before moving back to Nigeria to work for the Daily Times newspaper in April 1979. At the media organization, Dele was able to create the Art, Life, and American File columns, where he wrote columns every week. He was later hired by Chief Mashood Abiola in 1980 to work for his Concord group of newspapers, which he had recently founded, and was appointed the first editor of Sunday Concord. Thus, Dele Giwa only had one column with the Concord, called Parallax Snaps, which was a mix of the two names he used to write while he was serving at the Daily Times. Giwa created the news publication called Newswatch in 1984 with the help of some of his colleagues, namely Ray Ekbu, a former Sunday Times editor, Dan Agbis, a new Nigerian newspaper editor, and Yakubu Mohammed, a national Concord editor. On January 28, 1985, The magazine's inaugural news stories were released to the public under the leadership of Dele Giwa. However, history has it that this publication started Nigeria's transition to a truly investigative journalism era. According to research, Newswatch became a risky and unproven enterprise in Nigerian journalism. This was because the government couldn't handle the magazine as a result of its persistent digging of closed-door secrets. Moreover, it was a publication that was published without hesitation and dug so far into its research that it created a headache for the military governments led by Muhammadu Buhari and Ibrahim Babangida. Story before Dele Giwa's assassination. The editor-in-chief of Nigeria's first news magazine, Dele Giwa, was brutally murdered with a mail bomb barely 2 years after the publication of the magazine, and the real culprit has yet to be identified and prosecuted. On Sunday, October 19, 1986, Dele Giwa was assassinated by a package bomb at his house in Ikeja, Lagos, while he was studying with Kayode Soyinka. Reports revealed that this happened 2 days after he had been interrogated by State Security Service (SSS) personnel when the assassination took place. Lieutenant Colonel A.K. Togun, the deputy director of the SSS, stated that Dele Giwa and Alex Ibru had organized a media parley for media executives and the newly established SSS on October 9th in an off-the-record encounter with airport journalists. Togun asserted that a covert censorship agreement between the SSS and media CEOs was made at this meeting. According to this arrangement, the media was required to notify the SSS before attempting to publish any story that would embarrass the government. On September 19, 1986, Giwa received his first invitation to the SSS's headquarters as a result of writing an article in which he called the recently established second-tier foreign exchange market, SFEM, God's experiment, and predicted that if it failed, the populace would stone its leaders in the streets. 2 SSS agents spoke with Giwa and recorded his statement. Later, Lieutenant Col Togun, the agency's deputy director, invited him to a meeting in his office. As Giwa had also indicated 6 in the same narrative that he was hopeful that Babangida seemed motivated to make SFEM work, Togun is said to have told Giwa that he found nothing inappropriate in the story. Giwa was allegedly questioned by Colonel Halilu Akalu of the Directorate of Military Intelligence, DMI, over the phone on October 16, 1986, regarding a claim that Dele had been overheard discussing the shipment of weapons, according to Giwa's neighbor and co-worker Ray Ekpu. On October 16, 1986, SSS authorities reportedly called Giwa back into their headquarters, and the following day, Ekpu went with him for the interview. Lieutenant Colonel Togun claimed that Giwa and Newswatch intended to publish the other side of the narrative behind General Babangida's removal of Ebitu Ukwe as Chief of the General Staff. Togun also charged Giwa with collaborating on a socialist revolution alongside the Nigeria Labour Congress, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, and students. Giwa was charged with suggesting that Newswatch hire Alozie Ogugbuaja, a police public relations officer who had been placed on administrative leave. Giwa informed his friend Prince Tony Momo, who was the Minister of Communications at the time, about the interrogations. Giwa had confided in Momo that he feared for his life due to the seriousness of the accusations made against him. Momo promised to check into the situation, but, in Ekpu's words, dismissed it as a joke and stated the security men only tried to rattle him. Giwa also spoke with Admiral Augustus Ikomu, the Chief of General Staff, on Saturday, October 18th. He acknowledged his familiarity with the situation and pledged to look into it. A DMI employee called Giwa's home later on October 18th, the day before the attack, and requested his wife, Funmi, for his workplace phone number. Later, the same DMI representative called to claim he couldn't get through to Giwa at the office and put Colonel Akalu on the line. According to Ekpu, Akalu allegedly asked Giwa's wife for driving directions to the house. When she questioned him about his need for directions, he allegedly responded that he wanted to stop by the house on his way to Kano and wasn't familiar with the Kaja. He also allegedly said that the president's ADC had something for Giwa, most likely an invitation, and that he needed the directions. Giwa called Akalu on the morning of October 19th to find out why he had called his home the day before. Dele, Giwa's wife, was called by Akalu earlier to get her husband's home address. It was said that Akalu said he merely wanted to inform Giwa that the situation had been settled. According to Ekpu, Giwa told Akalu that the conversation wasn't finished and that he had already told his attorney, Chief Gonofor Hinmi, to follow up on the situation. After that, Akalu advised Giwa that there was no need for it and that he shouldn't see an attorney because the situation was already settled. Dele, Giwa's assassination. A parcel was brought to Giwa's security, who then gave it to Giwa's son, Billy. Around 40 minutes after the phone call with Akalu, there was no actual report of the car that brought the cargo. Billy claimed that the letter's contents were limited to the name written on it because the package was sealed with the Nigerian coat of arms. Billy added that his father will continue to receive letters from the government and that it wasn't the first time. Giwa was with Kayode Soyinka when his son delivered the item to him, London Bureau Chief of Newswatch. Dele Giwa was fatally injured when the package exploded on his lap, temporarily deafening Soyinka, who had excused himself to visit the restroom just before Giwa was going to try to open the package. Giwa was taken urgently to the hospital, where he eventually died. Kayode Soyinka's story. Before the bomb exploded, the only witness to these events, Kayode Soyinka, said that the package had a label with the seal of the Nigerian president and that it had come from the president's office. However, neither Billy, who delivered the letter, nor the security guard who received, was able to confirm Soyinka's assertion. Meanwhile, the pictures that a French photographer had taken of Gloria Okone were brought back by Kayode Soyinka, Newswatch magazine's bureau chief in London. On October 19, 1986, it was a Sunday morning and they were about to eat breakfast. After looking at the photos, Billy, Giwa's first son, entered the room bearing a package addressed to his father and intended solely for him. According to reports, Dele Giwa was thrilled to receive the package and assumed it was from Mr. President, in reference to the conversations he had with IBB days prior. As he attempted to open the package after placing it on his lap, the bomb detonated, severely injuring his lower torso and blowing apart his upper legs. Soyinka was knocked to the ground by the exit door by the noise and had lost consciousness. Everyone hastened to the location since the noise was so loud that it became deafening, only to find him on the floor in a pool of his own blood with his charred body. Dele Giwa kept wailing, "They have got me," as they were heading to the hospital. Whom he meant when he was referring to as they is still a mystery to date. Who killed Dele Giwa? The police and other security agencies repeatedly repeated their now familiar refrains of "no fresh leads" and "we have no clues yet, but we are still on it" throughout the administration of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who oversaw the brutal murder. In anticipation of information from the public that would help identify Dele Giwa's killers, the police kept the case file of the murdered journalist accessible for a number of years. After the bombing on October 20th, Augustus Ikomu presided over a press conference held by the authorities. All press photographers, international reporters, and Nigerians who worked for foreign news organizations were asked to leave before the press conference began. The briefing was described as being off the record, and those who remained were informed that Ikomu would not be answering any questions. The director of the SSS, Ismaila Gwarzo, and Haliru Akalu were then requested by Ikomu to provide their stories of recent events involving Dele Giwa and their respective organizations. Giwa has been asked to be questioned by the SSS on claims of running guns, according to Gwarzo. For his part, Akalu acknowledged that he had called Giwa's residence on October 18th to inquire about how to get there so he might stop by and visit Giwa while traveling to Kano via Ikeja Airport. According to reports, Akalu confirmed that he had wished to go to Giwa's house to confirm a Hausa proverb that says that by going to someone's house, you prove to him that you are truly a friend. Ekbu asserted that he recalled Tony Momo calling the murder a clear instance of assassination, and Gwarzo calling it very embarrassing later. He was cited as saying that a special probe would serve no constructive purpose. Graffiti from the era suggested that people thought the SSS was to blame for Giwa's assassination. After several controversies, investigations, and allegations, Giwa's lawyer, Gona Forhimni, was disowned by Newswatch magazine on November 18, 1986. However, after Mrs. Eniola Fadayomi, Director of Public Prosecution, declined to press charges based on the evidence available, Forhimni filed successive court actions against the government to enable him to pursue the case as a private prosecutor. These court cases were unsuccessful. Forhimni then appealed to the Supreme Court, where he received a favorable ruling that allowed him to appeal to the Lagos State High Court and ordered Justice Candido to step down from the case and name a new judge to hear it. Therefore, on February 23, 1988, Justice Long issued a decision prohibiting the prosecution of the two security guards, Lieutenant Colonel Tunde Togun and Colonel Haliru Akalu, for the murder of Dele Giwa, on the grounds that the accusation was mere hearsay. Thanks for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe. Thanks.